Hey, everybody. How are you doing today? I certainly hope that all of you are doing fine. And I'm happy to announce that I'm doing fine too. Glad to be with you once again. Now, first, I want to thank you so much for being with me again. I really appreciate it. And I would like to welcome you to this episode of TJ's Topics. That's right. And I'm also happy about the fact that this is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s weekend. That's right, because on this coming Monday, we celebrate Dr. King's birthday. Now, he was officially born on January 15th, but the third Monday in January is when we observe his birthday as a federal holiday. So many of us will have the day off work Monday. And I tell you, so I'm glad about that. But let me jump right on into today's topic on this MLK weekend. And I have a question for you, and that is, why are people so afraid of thinkers? That is the question that I have. And you may be able to answer that question. Perhaps you have had an encounter with people who, for some reason or another, don't care for those who think. I look, time will not even permit me to share my experience with you on people who came against me for thinking for myself. So I'm not even going to bother with it. But however, I did come up with 3 reasons why it seems like society at large has something against people who think for themselves. And so let's get into those reasons, shall we? Reasons why society fears critical thinking. Reason number 1 is people are afraid of deep thinking or critical thinking because it tends to threaten old paradigms, namely those that tie in with their religious upbringing. For an example, being told that the Bible is not the Word of God, but rather the word of men about God or man's interpretation of God. Because remember now, God means something different to everybody in every country, every nation, no matter where you go. God is something different to everybody. Even in the United States of America, God means different things to different people. And no matter what it is, whether it's from a religious perspective or a secular perspective, everyone has different views, and people have a right to think for themselves. But society, for the most part, doesn't care for those who think. They want you to kind of, go along with everybody else and everything else. Thinkers tend to stand out like a sore thumb, and they face a ton of criticism by those who don't think. I've been there, so I know how it is. It doesn't feel good, but know that as a thinker, you are a step above them. So that ought to make you feel good. Reason number 2, thinkers are oftentimes distant from the crowd. They usually don't mingle with a lot of people unless they absolutely have to. Thinkers like to spend time alone because it gives them an opportunity to analyze various situations and different things about life and their own circumstances or pretty much anything. That's something that thinkers do. But if you're not a thinker, then nah, that type of thing doesn't matter, you know. And when they do come around people, they usually like to observe everything and everybody. And we're talking about thinkers now. Thinkers are very observant people. They watch everything and they watch everybody. You know, they notice people's behavior, you know, listen to their words, you know, what they say and how they say it. And in the back of their mind, they can interpret in their own way exactly what they're saying and what they mean. But if you're not a thinker, then you won't have that capability. You know, it's just whatever. Man, I'm telling you, it's crazy, but I tell you, thinkers ought to be looked up to and not looked down on. Now, when these thinkers are noticed by someone in the crowd who is not a thinker, but somebody who likes to run their mouth all the time, and you have a lot of those out there, when they're noticed by them, they are usually triggered by the thinker's behavior. You know, they go to saying things like, "Well, you mighty quiet. You're not saying anything. You sitting over there by yourself. You ain't saying nothing." I have been there, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you. And they do that right in front of everybody. You know, they never come to you privately and make those comments. They'll make those comments in front of the crowd because they're seeking to embarrass you. That's what they want to do. And if they can embarrass you and make you feel some kind of way, then hopefully that will cause you to fly out the handle. And that's really what they want. They're trying to they're trying to stir up drama, you know, trying to start something. But as a thinker, no. You look over that. You look over them and you look over that type of mentality, because you understand that you know that you're better than that, and you don't have to stoop down to their level, because people who don't think, they tend to be down there. But as a thinker, you're up here. And it doesn't mean that you're better than them. That's not what it means. But you have positioned yourself for a greater advantage as a thinker. But they can't see that though, because they, you know, and people are afraid of thinkers. And that leads me to number three. Number three, the third reason why people are afraid of thinkers and thinking. Critical thinkers, or those who think for themselves, cannot be controlled by anyone, especially when it comes to matters pertaining to philosophical and worldviews. In other words, thinkers look at everything and everyone in their environment from a different perspective. See, when you're a thinker, you don't go along with everything, and you definitely don't go along with everybody. You have your own mindset. You have your own understanding of things and how the world operates. So you don't buy into to a lot of the okey doke that is fed to us by way of social media and the news and you know, I mean, pretty much anything in society. You don't fall for that if you're a thinker. And religion, you definitely don't fall for that. Because while the preacher's up there saying things, you know, and trying to condemn everybody to hell, you've already checked, you done already fact checked him. That's why it is such a blessing for us to be around in this time now in the 21st century, because we have access to information now that we didn't have access to 20, 30, 40, or even 50 years ago. So we ought to consider ourselves very privileged. So you can tell me what you think about that. Are you afraid of people who think, or Are you a thinker yourself? And if you are, then congratulations being a part of the number because there's a big crowd of us out here, big crowd of us thinkers, and we're glad to have you. So I want to thank you very much for tuning in to this episode of TJ's Topics. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you again next time, okay? Hope you enjoy yourself and enjoy this Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, or whenever you see this tape, this video. I hope you enjoy your day, okay? This is Taryn Jerome Harris, reminding all of you that every round goes higher and higher. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.